So that's my ring.
That's a cheery tone.
Oh, yeah, because that's kind of how I feel about my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. There's nobody. Yeah. Yeah, it was getting, yeah, I think they ripped out all the grid. I'm not sure.
It's being recorded.
Probably.
You don't know.
And then I said. Stack too over. I think it's. It's forever older than that. That's why I want to get me. Okay. No. A stairway that's. Either way, yeah, that's not just every year. It's so funny to get that there.
Yeah.
There's a pen because I forgot my.
You gotta look at me, Pete.
You'd have to put that doc on financing.
Pretend that you like each other.
Not used to.
Look up,
I'm not
Dad.
gonna talk much about this. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that to this page.
You're gonna send that to the meeting?
This page.
This page to me,
Yeah.
okay? I'm not gonna talk a lot about it, they can see what it is. I'll talk a little bit about premium and goodwill, and then I'll talk about the financing. Robin. Oh, she's zooming, okay.
I got it.
Your mom likes so much?
Madeline, it's this.
Good evening.
Are you gonna make it?
It is 4:45 and I'm going to call to order this Board of Harbor Commissioners, Tunnel Point Board of Harbor Commissioners question and answer session. It's Thursday, November 30th, 2023, 4:45 at Town Hall and via Zoom. And just a little process before we start. I'll do the roll call so that we have a formal meeting. We'll
Amy,
have some public comments. And then we're gonna have a question and answer session. That's the purpose of,
As high as it will go.
and we may want to
good, that's good.
put them on mute.
Yeah.
I can't, they have to mute themselves.
Could you mute your computers online, please, to get rid of the background noise? We have a packet that's here at the front if you haven't gotten a copy. It's got an overview sheet of about a page and a half. We'll kind of step through that, then we'll do some conversation at the beginning of that. We have a breakout on purchase price valuations. And Carol will talk about that. And then we'll go through questions. We'll try to entertain questions in the house and online and just work through what questions people have. I will say that there are some questions that you will have that we don't have answers for. And there will be some questions that relate to the operation of the business of the ferry line that we won't talk about because we're still working under a non-disclosure agreement for the ferry line, and we want to be protective of that detail. So with that, let's call the roll. Mike Anderson.
Here.
Michael Collins.
Here.
Evan Erickson.
Here.
Zach Montaigne.
Present.
Pete Ross was going to try to join online if he could, but I don't think he can. Bill Neubauer.
Here.
And I'm Michael Childers. I'm here and we're joined with our Harbor Commission Secretary, Lauren Berteau. With that, let's go through public comment. Paul.
Number one, if you could somehow see fit to move these harbor commission meetings to the evenings. And some of us at 8 in the morning at JOBs we have to be at. The second comment, when you take over the ferry line, is there any chance to no longer become a member of the chamber? Because you're getting enough people over here the way it is. And I don't think you need to encourage anymore. And you know, I might hear the argument that, well, we're gonna need tourists to pay for the ferry purchase. And if that's the case, I extrapolate that the locals and the summer people don't matter. If that's the case, maybe we should all go free. Which isn't gonna happen, but I'm throwing it out.
Thank you, Paul. Other public comments? Is there anything online, Lauren?
Not that I see.
All right. Then let's jump right into it. And on screen, you will see Lauren is screen sharing the pages of the document as we go through this conversation. And with that, we'll ask our town board chair, Glenn Carlson, to say a few words.
First, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. The last time I think we all got together to talk about this was September of 2022. Shortly after that meeting, and based on the feedback, the town board created a harbor commission with these 6 members plus Pete Ross, who's tending to a broken hand tonight. They have been working really every week. They've been meeting, and between meetings, they've been working very diligently on this. When we set up the Harbor Commission, we really gave them two charges. We gave them 2 charges. One was to determine a fair price for the ferry line, and the second was to determine a feasible financing structure. And yeah, I'm here to tell you tonight, maybe stealing a little bit of their thunder, that I think they have succeeded on both counts. I think that they have found a fair price for the ferry line, and I think that they have the elements of a financial structure that will be sustainable. And I think down the road, I think this could become a major source of revenue in support of the town's operations. So with that, I will turn it back to Michael.
Thank you, Glenn. As Glenn mentioned, we started work. I looked up today to see when it actually was. Our first Harbor Commission meeting was October 13th last year. And that kicked off some organizational work, but it kicked off a series of conversations with the ferry line, the ferry line's representative and legal team to try to start moving the ball forward to determine what was the price, what was for sale, really, was the first question. The boats, all the boats, the real estate, equipment, trucks, supplies, everything that goes with operating a ferry line. So determining what was for sale was our first question. And that then led to creating a team that would help us in all of the elements of this negotiation. And on your cover sheet, you'll see the various professionals that we hired to advise us on the value of the boats, the appraisal value of the real estate that's involved in the transaction, and there's real estate here on the island and on the mainland. Ellers is a public municipal finance firm. We hired them to develop business models to evaluate the tax statements for the ferry line, their operating statements, and come up with various projections. Carol led that charge. We hired Amundsen Davis to give us legal support. There's a lot of legal elements to it. And Freiberger Law Firm, who is our bond attorney, which specializes in municipal bonds. This was going to be expensive, we knew that. And we went to the state and we were able to secure $200,000 of support from this year's budget. And we're grateful to Governor Evers and to State Senator Romaine Quinn and Assembly Member Chaz Green for their support. That's how we got that $200,000. And that will be used to reimburse the expenses of this work. So the town won't have any cash expense affiliated with our development. There is a paragraph that talks about valuation, but we'll flip to that sheet in just a second. As part of this process, we've developed 3 different key documents. There will be a purchase agreement for the vessels as its own agreement. There'll be a purchase agreement for the real estate and the equipment and other real property in the transaction. And then there's an operating agreement. All 3 work together and will be authorized at the same time. The operating agreement includes an annual payment to what will likely be a new corporate form that I think of it as Madeline Ferry Line 2.0. that will be the operating company that will run the system on our behalf. And that means revenue collection, bill paying at our direction, because we will negotiate an agreed budget for the next year. That really will reside in the authority of the Harbor Commission in the town. But it does give us time to kind of develop an understanding of how the Fairline runs and build whatever necessary infrastructure we need. It's possible that we will need to hire someone to manage that relationship, pursue external government funding. The variety of elements that are involved in this are not quite clear yet.
Michael, would you please speak up a little bit?
Sure,
Thank you.
I'll try to.
There you got it.
I'll try to. I do get quiet. Glenn tells me that regularly. It's our goal to use the year ahead to identify financially sound opportunities. One thing that this purchase does, this movement from a private enterprise into a public utility, is give us the possibility to access federal and state support. And there's a lot of work to be done. As you mostly know, most people know, we did try to apply for a RAISE grant last year and we were declined. But we know that there is a lot of opportunity if we work to pursue it. So that's going to be a big part of this next year will be. And that opportunity will give us our best chance, we think, to address rates and schedules, because it's all about money. Of course, labor shortage comes into play, but if we can secure significant financial funding, we think we have an opportunity in those two areas. The operating agreement provides a continuity of service, and we have signed a letter of intent to purchase. We announced when we had our last article in the Gazette that it was our expectation that the combination of financing structure, which includes a revenue bond, a general obligation bond, and a note anticipation, an anticipation note, we'll talk more about that, might still require us to supplement with taxpayer support. We no longer think that's the case. We think our modeling indicates that we will not ask for any real estate tax levy, and the purchase will be financed through the business operations of the Fairline. So sorry to say we kind of misled you a little bit about that. We didn't know for sure, but we're feeling pretty good about that. Basically, during this process, I've heard the word in perpetuity or the phrase in perpetuity a lot. We're in a position as a community to own forever the Fairline and no longer feel threatened or under the pressure of a private business trying to make money. It'll be the decision of the people and how this thing operates over time. So I like to remind myself of that every once in a while. Tonight, we're gonna try to answer what we can about how will this affect you, in what ways, and how we intend to move forward as we work this puzzle out. There's a sheet. Lauren, the sheet
Next page.
that has a breakdown, and Carol, as I mentioned, has been taking the lead on our financing package. So Carol, if you would.
Happy to.
Thank you.
You can see by this sheet, I mean, we hired professionals that were well-known in the industry to determine what the valuation of the boats. And the gentleman from Pinnacle Marine is well-known throughout the nation, and he came out, he was familiar with the boats to begin with, but he came out and inspected the boats from head to toe and gave us a valuation on each one of these boats. These are a valuation, not a replacement cost. If we were to replace any of these boats, they would not be near this value. They would, I don't know, they'd be hugely higher. But as when I started this project, I thought of a ferry line I drive on, I go across, I drive off. That's all I knew. And since then, I've learned more about ferry boats than I ever thought I would. But what I also learned is ferry boats, the hull of the boats, the bank keeps asking me, what about your replacement plan? The hull of the boats don't wear out. It's all the insides. And so we never looked at replacement of these boats. We looked at maintaining these boats, and some boats may need to be retired in the future, but this is the valuation determined by a third party respected in the country to help us value the boats. On the real estate, we had several interesting parcels to determine the value. And this was a little more challenging because there isn't comparables on many of the real estate. So we went off of county valuations and usage valuations, and we had a very good statewide real estate guy that came up with our valuations, and we're pretty comfortable with that. And then we had miscellaneous trucks and tools and inventory and parts and software and all these things that we agreed with the ferry line, what that valuation will be. And you can see the total there. And then what we paid for it. There is a premium. We did pay a premium for this, and that is a combination of several things. One of it is a concept in the accounting world called goodwill. And goodwill is an intangible asset, but it hangs on the books. And it can be calculated, but it is the goodwill of what the company has created in that their trademark, their reliability, their safety. There is a lot of that in the Madeline Island Ferry Line. The other thing too is while McMahon valued the boats, those boats are in excellent shape. They have been very well maintained. Same with the property. All of it is clean, well maintained. The buildings are well maintained. We are buying a very premium company. So that's what we all believe justifies the premium and the goodwill in that purchase price. And that percentage is not out. I looked at several different acquisition situations, and that percentage is not outside of a competitor buying a competitor or anything like that.
17.3.
That's how we came upon the purchase price. Now, how are we going to pay for it? This has been a challenge, right? This is a big deal for this town. This is bigger. I mean, we collect close to $7 million in taxes, and we're looking to finance $17 million. And what two of my main concerns was I didn't want to bankrupt the town, and I didn't want it to go on the tax roll. So we came up working with Ehlers and Rick Dyson at Bremer Bank. We've come up with a scenario that we are still fine tuning, that we will finance this by $6 million of revenue bonds that are tax exempt, along with $6 million of general obligation bonds that are also tax exempt. These bonds will be placed privately with Bremer Bank. They will not be an open market bond that we have to depend on the marketplace to purchase them. And then we are looking to raise $5 million in what I call subordinate debt. And this is private lender debt that we will be able, they're called note anticipation notes. And we are able to go out to the private sector and ask them to lend us money for a 5-year period at a tax exempt rate. And with that, we have raised our $17 million, give or take a little bit here and there. Like
So the $5 million has been raised.
no, we
Or agreed upon.
we have a certain amount agreed upon. We haven't been able to really approach private entities yet. Our bond attorney is in the process, and maybe we've gotten into Q&A a little too fast, but our bond attorney is in the process of outlining the financial structure and providing a sample of what that note looks like. And the people that I have interested, they want to see that. And so we have a long list. I mean, we have over 30 people that I believe will have an interest. And so I am not concerned. Well, I can't say it. You never know until you get it done, right? But I believe we will be able to raise the $5 million without an issue. It's a very it will be tax exempt. It's not a great investment. It's not a bad investment. It's a good investment. And anybody who cares about the town will, I believe, go forward. What else can I tell you? Oh, we do not know exactly what it will cost us yet for these bonds. Because until the bond is struck, we don't know the rate, we don't know the price. And we're hoping we will have the bonds issued early 2024. Right now, the bank has told me we are in the range of about 7%, which, well, you know what rates have done, right? And we're hoping maybe they have stabilized, maybe they'll move down a little bit for us after the first year. But the days of 2% and 3%, which we have on a lot of our borrowings, are just not available. But they are 7%. They are redeemable. We can refinance at any time if rates should fall dramatically. So we're not stuck with that. We are issuing revenue bonds over a 30-year period. They take first priority and they will be paid out of revenue. General obligation bonds are issued over 20 years and they also will be paid out of revenue. And with this subordinate debt, we're able to, that is a 5-year term. So that debt is moved 5 years down the line. And that's one of the components that we have to keep this off the tax roll. And that's not to say we won't ever ask for taxpayer money, but the way that we're trying to put this together, we're trying to minimize or eliminate that tax levy. And so that's what I've been doing with the last 6 months of my life.
And there's a lot in there, a lot. Why don't we see, are there questions about the finance package that come to mind that people have?
Love to hear you talk a little bit about how you predicted the revenue that's going to pay these two bonds that are required to pay.
Just as we predicted off of any company would do the same thing, you know, it is based on historical revenue from the P&Ls of the ferry line. We had to have that type of information. We also have done extensive cash flow analysis to understand what we will need. And I'll be quite frank, the first 2 years cash flow is a challenge. And we will have to, and I just spent an hour with our financial group on the phone at 4 o'clock. We'll have to look at one or two, like a working line or something, which is traditional in a seasonal business, to maybe help us through the cash flow in the first year or so. But we based it on our historical P&Ls.
I thought I saw a hand.
Yeah, I was along the same lines, but with these bonds, and I know you can't tell us the numbers that they're generating revenue, but like a percentage, how much of the profit right now is going to get eaten up by the bonds, and then based on that, are you going to have enough money left over for maintenance and all those kinds of issues?
We have, you know, and this is what we're just finalizing, and we'll have completed by Tuesday of next week, the incomplete financial model. And while we have put in our capital expenditures, we put in our whole maintenance structure. So the maintenance is there. There are some capital expenditures that in the first year, there might be 1 or 2 things we might not be able to get done, but future revenues and future cash flow, which is so key, makes it easy for us to push it into a year or year, you know, to paint a boat. Can we wait a year to paint a boat? I think we can wait a year to paint a boat, but it's things like that maybe we need to push off a year. We are just in a hump right now, that the startup of the whole deal. The other thing too is there is tremendous state and federal funding out there for ferry line projects, and both on the maintenance and operation and capital expenditure.
And at this point, you're not including any of that since
None of it, right? None of it. So this gives us, particularly that subordination debt, gives us that little bit of room to go out and find those programs that can help us pull this together.
I think we may have an online question.
Does 100% of revenue go toward bond payoff? How is the revenue used in light of operating agreement?
That's very similar to this most recent question.
It'll be it's included.
The
The,
operating,
the management fee is included in our cash flow and income projections.
Other questions about what this deal basically looks like financially or? All right, why don't we talk a little bit about process? Because there is a process that we'll need to go through.
Good question.
There's a question.
I'm a delayed question. Can you tell me just what the big picture number is, what the town is borrowing for the project?
$17 million.
Thank you.
Yeah,
In round numbers.
in round numbers. We have to come up with another 100. We'll get there.
Can I just clarify a question? So what I'm hearing is that virtually all of the expected cash flow, other than federal and state support, is expected to go towards either the operating agreement or the debt service for the foreseeable future.
And capital expenditures.
Capital.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I feel like this is a pretty conservative package you put together?
Conservative? Well, yes. I mean, we could have, the first package you would have seen, Penny, when 6 months ago, you wouldn't have said, I mean, we looked at a huge amount of money going on the tax roll. And I just said, and not just for this year, for years to come. And I said that just can't happen. This should be a user-based operation, not on the burden of the people that live on Madeline Island. Granted, we take great benefit from it and we are happy to have it, but and that's one of the things that we just need to get into it to kind of figure out fee structures and different things like that to maximize how we pay for this thing. I mean, this is a huge deal for the town of LaPointe. And I can't tell you the number of nights I've stayed laying awake thinking about it and worrying about it. But as Michael said, this is perpetuity. This is ours for the rest of it. We don't have to, this is ours to make decisions on. And I think that is just so key.
Glenn?
And after the 20 years or 30 years of paying off the debt, all of the net income of the operation will be available for improving the service, the schedule, reducing fares, or for helping the town.
Yeah. Most of us in this room go, what?
Like, I'll have a senior member.
Yeah.
And you'll probably be able to renew it before June.
Yeah.
You know, this is
a race.
perpetuity. You know, I mean, we've had, how long have we had the sewer system to, how much did that cost?
We have another raised hand.
1975.
so we'll go ahead and let Rob speak.
Rob Karloff, I see your raised hand.
Thank you. I appreciate this. I think you mentioned this for some of the debt, but my question is about all of the debt. If things will work out better than projected and we're able to pay off the bonds, or to are we able to pay off the bonds early, I guess is my question. All of them, all of the lending.
Rob, thanks for your question. You know, we would first probably look to pay off the subordinate debt, which is the 5-year private lending debt. And we are under no obligation to carry the bonds to term, that we could pay off bonds early. That's one of the very good benefits of being able to place these bonds with Bremer Bank, you know, that they aren't in the open market. That Bremer, you know, if they get paid off early, they're okay with that. And they have been a great partner to us. So yes, if we generate more income, then we would look to retire debt as quickly as possible.
Super. Thank you so much.
We have another online question. Is there anything in the room? Why don't we go ahead?
I know that the shipping operation is a revenue source. Do you think that as a public organization that is beholden to its citizens, we would lose bargaining power with UPS, et cetera? I know that negotiations with them have been issues in the past.
Well, we haven't gotten to the point of engaging in that relationship, so we can't answer that with any certainty, but I can't imagine it would be any different given that we would be the ferry line. So I'm not quite sure that I understand the question.
Wouldn't whoever you have the operating agreement with be worried about those contracts? It wouldn't be with the town of La Pointe.
They're currently in the operating agreement as potentially assignable. But particularly the relationship with the post office requires some significant vetting of people who handle US mail. So we'll want to keep that in the hands of the NIFL 2.0. But all of that revenue stream comes to the Harbor Commission, regardless of how it comes. Anything else, Lauren?
To let them know we can clarify if it.
Let's talk a little bit about the process that we're going to need to go through because it's very specific. The town electors will be asked to approve the purchase of real estate. That's a power that the town electors have. And there is real estate in the transaction on both sides. The real estate that the town electors will be asked to approve are the parcels that exist within the town of La Pointe.
What is the interest rate on the sub debt?
The other real estate doesn't fall into the elector's responsibility, so the town board can take action on that. So we'll be asking the town to schedule a meeting for the electors to consider the approval of purchasing the real estate. There will then be a request. Oh, talk louder. So we're going to ask you to approve the purchase of the real estate. That's what I kind of said. There will then be a request to the town board to authorize the Harbor Commission to sign these three agreements, which are, again, the vessel purchase agreement, the real estate, equipment, supplies, et cetera, vehicles agreement, and the operating agreement. Those three, because the Harbor Commission cannot encumber the town financially without the town board's approval. So we'll be going to them for that approval. We envision after that happening that we'll be in a position to sign the agreements on or around 12/31/2023. 12/31 is a Sunday, so it may be 12/29/2023. The agreements are in strong shape. There is, I think Carol alluded to, currently interaction with our bond attorney and Amundsen Davis to get language in the operating agreement that's described as a safe harbor to ensure that those bonds are tax-free, which is very important to our investors. And that then will be shared with the attorney at the ferry line, Steve Burrs, and NIFL for any final comments. Once we feel that's final, we'll present this to the town board. The town board has been informed about these documents and the financials as we've moved through the process. They're also under the non-disclosure agreement. So we'll get that information to them for their blessing to sign. It's going to change or stay the same. Your discount ferry card will maintain its balance. If you have money on the ferry card, that'll continue. Things are possible that we don't see yet, right? That's all on the table, but we can't
continue.
Things are possible that we don't see yet. I can't imagine we wouldn't continue it, at least in some form, maybe a more favorable form. We haven't gotten to that point quite yet. Scheduling, we're going to want to put together some kind, let me get louder about this, We're gonna want to put together some kind of process to hear from the public what their interest is in scheduling. We know there's interest in worker traffic. We know there's interest in school kids being able to do after-school activities and getting home. So we know there's a lot of interest. We don't yet know what that looks like and what is affordable. So we really get into the operation a bit more. But in the short term, generally, I think I speak for the commission when we don't want to make changes too quickly because we don't know what's coming down the road until we get a better federal state financial support where we can get a little more serious about how the fare structure looks.
So Michael, that means in terms of years.
The operating agreement is envisioned to be a 4-year agreement.
Right, but seeking public input about what's important to Islanders, I mean, that's not gonna influence the operating agreement. It's gonna be signed by the end of this year. You're talking about.
It might, you know, there are a couple of things that are really important, it seems. School kid transportation seems to be a big one. So if we can find a way to do that, we'll probably want to do that. What we haven't gotten into is on the fare side, is it possible to change fares for the day trip individual and lower discount card fees? Or is it possible to find money that would expand service in the morning if we need that from a business perspective? We're going to look at it, but we're not going to rush into anything. That's our feeling at the moment. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. That's kind of the general. Winter transportation will operate like it has, except the ferry line won't be a participant. The Harbor Commission has a participant at the table, and Zach is our winter transportation representative. You said there's something online.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
When you're ready. Are you
Ready?
What is the interest rate on the sub debt?
Don't know yet. As Carol mentioned, 7% is the number that's floating around. Until that gets locked down, we won't know the interest rate. But if you're interested out there, Carol is interested in participants. If you want to extend an invitation.
Well, yeah, not yet. But what we will do is whatever our general obligation bonds are pegged at will be the interest rate on the subordinate debt. They will be the same. They'll be both tax exempt notes and general obligation notes that will carry the same rate. And we won't know that until we strike the bond. So, and we're not quite ready for prime time on the subordinate debt. I need to hear from my bond or a bond attorney and look at the structure that he's put together before I take it to individuals to raise the funds. But we anticipate that to be really quick.
But if you're interested, once again, Carol will be ready here soon.
Oh, yeah.
Accept your interest.
I have another.
Sure.
The person apologizes if they missed it, if this was already said, but hearing about purchasing real estate, is the business operation included?
What we think of as the ferry line office is not part of the transaction.
But all of the property is the landing on the Bayfield side for both the main harbor and the secondary harbor. All of the real estate except for that office.
Except for that office, that'll stay with Miffle 2.0. However that looks. We have here in Town Hall copies of the appraisals, the summary sheets.
Those online also.
They are online also. And the underlying multi pages of each of these. Talk to Lauren. She's got
Hundreds of
pages of appraisal information. Debbie.
Yeah, have you been or will you soon be in conversation with the Bayfield School District in terms of becoming that partner, or will that still be Miffle 2.0?
What do you mean by?
Well, because the ferry line and the school district and the town have a partnership, right, for just for the.
You're talking with transportation?
an agreement.
I think it's very transparent.
Right,
And we will be involved in that.
Okay, so the Harbor Commission,
Yes,
then will be.
Nick?
Yeah.
And when you brought up the different real estate, the trekking trail building is 700,000. Backside is 326,000. The middle road property is 120,000. $1 million of real estate, is not really part of the business.
We don't agree with that assessment, and I'll tell you why.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah.
What is the plan for that?
Yeah.
You know, since you're basically a government entity sort of going into the commercial real estate business, or what is gonna be done with those buildings?
Well, there's no final plan yet, but on the mainland side, Trek and Trail also comes with a parking lot. And for winter parking, that parking becomes fundamental to our ability to operate. So we see that as a continuing need for the ferry line. The dockside property, it's a rental property, but it also has the opportunity to put a dock there that potentially impedes ferry boat service. We see that as a potential problem, as well as the traffic flow in front of that facility. So we don't know what the future of that facility looks like. The only property that doesn't seem to be something that we are particularly interested in at the moment is the Middle Road property. And we'd probably look to the town government, see if they see a use for it. It could be something for affordable housing. I don't know. But that's potentially a liquidation if nobody has any use for it. But the other two properties we think have need.
And then since the headquarters building isn't included.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put the office?
Well, the ferry line is going to run the operation on a,
Yeah, for so many years, and then eventually they'll walk away from it, and then does any thought gone into what's gonna happen at that point?
well, you know,
There's not enough room in here to.
Have you seen the freight building?
exactly.
we have the
Lovely
freight
freight building.
Well, plus it's dockside.
Okay.
And dockside, but that's not seasonal. It's a seasonal building. But when we get closer to that issue, we'll address that issue, I think.
And dockside and Trek and Trail are both revenue streams.
They're revenue streams.
And another part of the Trek and Trail building is that Miffle does use a portion of that building for storage for the operation.
I have a question. Will island property owners receive a discount card with their tax bill?
No. You have to sign up for the discount cards at the ferry line. One of the things we hope to get rid of is the need for people to have restricted time frame to put money on their cards, but no, it's the same as it is.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah,
We are not able to provide discounts or any differentiating passage fare to one specific group of people that then endangers our tax exempt. So when we are just like the ferry line does today, you have a card, you have a discount. If you're a senior, you get a little more discount. But we cannot say, okay, if you own property on Madeline Island, you get a particular discount. That is showing preferential treatment to a very specific group of people. And then we lose our tax exemption. And that is something we cannot do.
oh,
In other words, you could maybe instead of 7 or 8% discount buying swipe card, it could be 15-20%, but you have to offer it to anyone that comes in with $240.
it has a card.
Oh.
You get a card, you get the discount.
Follow-up
Go ahead.
clarification here. For the question regarding the sorry, guys. I'm hearing about purchasing real estate. Is the business operation included? They would like to clarify. So the Ferry Line 2.0 owns the business and the town owns property. I think there should be clarification about the management company or
Okay.
management group
Okay,
versus.
so let's clarify this purchase is an asset purchase, not a stock purchase. The operating agreement will be with the surviving entity, Miffle 2.0, to run it with our equipment, our boats, using our real estate. This will all be free and clear that the town of Point will own. NIFL 2.0 is holding on to ownership of the current office. And they'll run the show for us out of that current office. We'll own all the other real estate. Amy?
When they quit, they say, all right, you guys learned enough, you can run it. Will all those computers and mag card builders and blah, 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 that they don't move out of that building then?
It will be our equipment.
Yeah.
We'll move it where it needs to
So we
move.
are buying, they're just using our computers and stuff too in that office.
They're
They only
using our
own the
equipment.
building.
They own the building. They want to own the building.
That's.
I think technically we get the software, it may not include the
We do include.
actual computers.
Yes, it does. Everything is included except for Robin and Gary's personal property. Yeah,
You could clarify about the Harbor Commission potential to learn.
that's the question.
We're just kind of saying that.
The question is a little confused. The Harbor Commission is trying to figure out what is the best way to work with the ferry line going forward. And this is going to be a complicated operation. And we talked about this at the Harbor Commission today. We're trying to get our heads around what does that role look like? When does that role start? What is that job? There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. So we don't have an answer to that question, but it's definitely something we're looking at.
I think it's worth pointing out that state law prohibits any member of the Harbor Commission from receiving any compensation whatsoever. And so it's not really reasonable to expect the Harbor Commission to be managing this on a day-to-day basis.
It's going to be bigger than what we're able to do. We're going to need to find someone to do this work, right? Basically. When we don't know.
Charlie.
Michael, getting back to real estate, what about the maintenance facility on Old Stand over by Wildrice? That's not part of this?
It is.
It is.
Oh, it is?
It
Okay.
is.
So that is part of the terminal and all that other property.
I believe it's Bayfield Shop.
Yeah.
Went out the door.
This,
Thank you for clarification.
this also includes 3 underwater parcels.
Never heard of such a thing. Underwater
Underwater
parcel.
Space.
In front of the old
harbor.
harbor.
They might be for sale though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need a boat, and we need to get to that. More questions? You have one?
Going back to pricing and equity for everyone using the new ferry line, does that mean free passage for owners will end with sales?
The owners will not have that benefit, but we envision keeping what benefit is provided to the employees of the ferry line. Some of the employees have ferry line.
Try to get the
Traffic.
town to agree to.
But the owners, the management, the people that you think of probably no longer get free passage.
Scrounge.
Need a mute reminder.
Yeah.
Mute reminder.
Oh. If you're not speaking, if you would go on mute, that's great. Other questions?
I have a question that just came up. Yeah. May have missed the answer, but- So on the Bayfield side, where we pull up and all those docks there, those are gonna be ours. Are we still gonna have the emergency weather's really bad dock over on the side?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
That's where those parcels are, those underwater parcels.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's how we get to that dock,
Okay.
because Barry Nelson bought those some time ago. 60 something.
Just off the, does the city of Bayfield have any input on this? I mean, they're losing a bunch of tax money.
When we asked them for a letter of support for our raise grant, they recognized that they were going to lose some tax money and asked us to consider payment in lieu of taxes. I don't know that anybody is enthused about that notion. So at the moment, no.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably ask. Anything else? Yeah, we're getting to the end. If you have any last minute questions, and I'd invite you to send an email to the Harbor Commission. If you think of something that comes up. Because it's our intent to try to tell you everything that we can. And we don't think of everything, and you might think of something that we need to consider.
Alex, did you have a question?
Yeah, just, and you kind of briefly mentioned this as something that's gonna be structured more when there's federal and state money understanding. But what do you see as the mechanism for, say, me to change something about how the ferry is running? Once this is all said and done, like, is it coming to the Harbor Commission and then, sorry, I'll let you answer.
It is coming to the Harbor Commission, and the Harbor Commission, you'll remember, is appointed by the town board. So it kind of flows back to the citizen who elects the town board, who appoints the Harbor Commission. But your first line of inquiry would be into the Harbor Commission to express, could we do this, or could we do that? Or could the schedule do this, or could the schedule do that? So, and we invite that question. Paul?
Since you said the Harbor Commission is appointed, is there any chance, since you're overseeing a multi-million-dollar operation, to have the Harbor Commission elected?
State statute specifies how this happens.
Okay,
So if you can change state statute through some,
I'll start tomorrow.
that would be the way to, well, that would be the way to do that. Yeah.
Any decision that the Harbor Commission makes has to be approved by the town board.
It's the state statute, it gives the Harbor Commission the authority to own a ferry line and to run it outside of the direct involvement of the town board. The town board appoints the members of the Harbor Commission. So we're on 3-year staggered terms. They can influence the Harbor Commission through their appointments, but they won't be operating it. Now, as a practical matter, I don't see any upside to the Harbor Commission and the town board getting into loggerheads over what we're doing, because we want to serve the community, both bodies, but the Harbor Commission will run the show.
By state statute.
By state statute. Mary?
The ferry line contributed heavily to the improvements to the town dock, the widening of the town dock.
Yep.
Is that,
The Harbor Commission is going to take that responsibility. There were 3 years remaining in that relationship. The other thing, 50,000 a year for the next 3. The other thing is we'll need to fund the dock lease, because we will be the owner of the ferry line. So the Harbor Commission will take that responsibility as well.
It's,
if the town owns it, why would you?
It's kind of a-
We should be paying the town.
but we
A
can't
lot of revenue loss.
pull the revenue from the town, right? I mean, we have to still support the town and what they budgeted and what they depend on for revenues over the years. I know, I did the same thing, Mary. I said, well, let's get rid of this. But we really can't.
At least not yet.
Not yet.
No.
But state law does provide that, if the Harbor Commission has excess income, like they're making more money than they need for maintenance and capital expenses, by law, any excess goes to the town.
Michael,
Yes.
this is Bill Green. I just want to state how appreciative I am of the entire Harbor Commission, the time you've put into this extensive background work. Thank you.
It's been our pleasure working for the future. And it's been an interesting process. Any other questions?
Remind me, what year was the statute written?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I'd have to look at the statute.
Oh, this-
Well, and think of, most harbor commissions are not created to buy and operate a ferry line. They're created to manage a harbor, right? A marina, a harbor area. So there's a lot of things in the statute that apply to us. There's some things that don't apply to us, but it's an old statute.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So because it is so unique, did you have other models to look at when you were putting this together, other villages that were connected by ferries that were so incredibly important to the livelihoods of?
Do you want to?
Well, we did consider them, but our focus was really on this operation. And what does it do financially? And can it be a profitable enterprise that the Harbor Commission could proposed to the town to purchase. For example, Washington Island, those boats are significantly different because the geography of Death Store is significantly different. I think about Beaver Island's boat is stories, multi-millions of dollars of equipment.
Those are boats every 10 years.
But we did
certainly
look at
reference that.
hiring expertise that would be familiar with dealing with maritime, because there is a lot of maritime laws and a lot, but dealing with maritime operations. And so that's why our attorneys are in Green Bay. And our boat guy he was well known throughout the nation on passenger vessels. And so we did look at hiring the expertise as close as we could to getting what we needed to pull together.
We didn't investigate the financial operations of those ferry lines.
No.
If that's all, I just want to remind you, when it gets posted, come and vote to authorize the purchase of real estate by the town of LaPointe within the boundaries of LaPointe. The town board sets
That's
that.
probably gonna be the week between Christmas and New Year's, right?
No. It may happen fairly quick.
Probably before Christmas. 20th.
There's a posting.
Yeah, there's a 15-day. Has to call the meeting. City town board has.
So that's going up tomorrow.
Well,
Yeah.
Here.
No.
Thank
First.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
That's so far.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all so much for coming.